Hey guys, Chad again. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching the channel. I want to do a little video today just to show you a little bit about some of the finishes I was doing on knives. If you've gone back in some of my previous videos or saw some pictures maybe on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see that I stabilize a lot of the woods I have. Mostly maple, but I have done palm as well. And I'll do the burled maples, burled ash, I'll stabilize cherry, quilted maple, curly maple, bird's eye maple, and so on. But some woods are too oily or too hard to stabilize to put in a process like that. So you have to try to find other ways to make the knife wood, the scales of the knife, not just sustainable for the life of the knife, but to keep its nice look, to keep its durability and its natural finishes. So what I did is I came across a couple of different finishes in the past. And one of them I've mentioned a few times before about Watco Danish Oil. And I use a natural finish. And Watco Danish Oil is kind of a penetrating oil, but it's elusive when they talk about penetrating because it doesn't go very deep. It really just goes through the surface of the wood, just maybe a paper thin or maybe a couple of sheets of paper, just that depth. And definitely depending on the wood itself. Also, Watco Danish Oil is very good for multiple treatments. And honestly, the materials I'm going to be talking about today, all of them for the most part are very good for multiple finishes, meaning you want to put it on 2, 3, 4 times to give it a good coat. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the pros and cons to each one and how their finishes are or what involves the reasoning behind using each one of these finishes. First off, though, I wanted to show you an example. I did a test sample so I could show you guys a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about here. And I used oak, because oak I'm not going to be stabilizing. Some people do it. They throw it in a chamber and they stabilize it, and they have some fairly decent luck with it. Same thing with other hardwoods like yews. They're a dry wood. We don't do yew very much around here in the U.S. or anything. I guess yew is very popular in Europe. But mostly it's oaks and walnuts and maples around here, mahoganies, things like that. Well, I grabbed some oak, and I grabbed this oak because it has some really nice grains, some darks and light grains through it, and it's a red oak. It's a regular red oak that we can get here in the United States pretty often, and you can even get it at grocery, hardware stores and stuff. But what I did is I grabbed some of this oak and I threw 2 pieces, similar sized pieces, into 2 different types of oil finishes. One of them was Watco Danish Oil. Another one is a mix of boiled linseed oil and mineral spirits. And I put them both into jars, filled the jar up completely. I put both of these woods inside a jar, put the lid on it, let them set to the side for 24 hours. After that 24-hour period of time, I pulled them out, wiped them clean, set them on the counter, on the workbench here, let them sit for that for 24 hours, to let them dry, and in some cases that material starts to crystallize, kind of hardens a little bit. Then at that point, I went ahead and I ripped them the length, as I would as if I was making a book match set for knife scales. I ripped them the length to see if I had penetration, and then I also cut one of the ends off just to see the depth, to get a good view of everything, a 3-dimensional look on the penetration of the materials I was working with. And I wanted to share the results of this particular finish on oak. So let me get to that and I'll show you. Okay guys, what we have here is a regular piece of red oak. Nothing out of the ordinary with it. It's just what it did have. It had some really nice different types of colors to it. You'll see that it has a darker color in it. It just had a really nice grain to it. Now, I'm not going to be stabilizing this like I normally would, so I wanted to do a normal finish. Well, one of the finishes that I was using all the time was a Watco Danish Oil. And Watco Danish Oil is really nice. You can buy it at your big box stores or even at your local hardware store. And it's a really good finish for furniture and such. Holds up really well. And it's a finish that you're going to want to apply to natural woods like the ironwoods and the oaks and maybe some burleds like burled cherry, burled ashes where they're harder woods, burled oaks and such. You want to apply this, and what you're doing is you're applying multiple coats over a long period of time. So as a knife maker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of the handles after they've already been put on a knife and the knife's pretty much done. I'll go ahead and I'll put it in a clamp or device and I'll rub it down with Watco Danish Oil. I'll let it sit for the day. I'll come back out. I'll wipe any excess off and then I'll just reapply another one. And I'll do this every day for about a week. Then after that time, I'll go ahead and do it again right before I send it out to the customer, and I try to wait another week or two before I do it. And what I'll tell the customer, if you're the customer, I would tell you that you get yourself a little Watco Danish oil, and you're going to want to apply this to your knife scales at least once to twice a month for the first 6 months of your knife. It's new, it's fresh wood, it's been cut, it's been sanded. It needs that attention. Also, you're going to want to apply additional coats depending on your use. If you're using your knife a lot or carrying it out and it's exposed to the elements, you're going to want to use another coat every time you come back in. Clean your knife off and rub it down with the natural Danish oil finish. Like any natural product, especially with knives in general, they're not just an implement. It's not just necessarily a tool, but when you own certain knives, there's a level of responsibility when it comes. It's your care. It becomes kind of like a lifestyle in a way, especially depending on the type of knife. If you have something like a 1084 or 1095, an 01 tool steel, some of those that are very hard carbon, you're going to not only have to take care of the scales of the knife, but you're also going to have to take care of the blade itself and the steel by making sure it's properly oiled when you store it and as you use it periodically and check on it, because those steels will rust a lot faster than stuff like your stainless steels, or like 154 CM, CMP 154, even D2, which is kind of what I use, which is the happy medium between both your carbon steels and your stainless steels. But anyhow, so care needs to be taken, and with Watco Danish oil, this is a pretty decent way to go. Now there's another finish I'd talk about, and that goes into the gun maker's world, and it's called Tru-Oil. Tru-Oil is another finish. This is used, of course, on gun stocks. When you have your gun stocks that have the bird's eye maple, curly maple, or walnut, they rub, after they're sanded down to a good, 1,000 grit or something, they'll rub the gun stock oil on it. Now the gun stock oil works really well, and again, this too, you want to apply it, cover everything evenly on the wood, wipe it clean, and let it set. The Tru-Oil, by the gun stock Tru-Oil here, will actually start to harden, and it seals up the wood. Again, though, you want to do 2 or 3 coats of this, and after every coat, you want to wipe off any excess and let it set and dry for a couple of days. Really good for knives. Works good for that. Works good for your natural woods and everything, and you can use it for pretty much any wood you want to put on knife scales as knife scales. But again, it got its history from being for gun stocks, so that shows you that it can hold up to some wear and tear and some abuse. It also helps seal out moisture, so it helps keep water from penetrating it and causing the wood to bend or twist and contract and be affected in such a manner. So this is another option, and again, this is something that anybody could go out and buy, and you could apply it to a knife that you already have. If you have wood handles, you want to try to give them a little bit better treatment. Rub them down with some sandpaper or something like that. Get a certain type of sandpaper, and then try some of this Tru-Oil and see how that goes. Now another finish I want to do, and this is an oil. This is called a Renaissance wax. Now my knife mentor steered me onto this, and this was a blessing. This works really well, and this will work great not only for raw woods, but it works really well for cleaning up and really giving my stabilized maples a good finish. I put this on my one knife that I did for the quilted maple, and I did the one side of the scale, and you could see a remarkable difference between one side to the other. So I did both of them. It was great. When my son saw that, he wanted to put it on his knife that he did recently, which was the spalted maple knife that he made. And there's a video on my channel as well as him doing that. But Renaissance wax, it lasts a long time, but the caveat is this gets a little bit pricey. A little can like this can be quite expensive, and again, if this is something that you probably, if you want to buy it and use it on your 1 or 2 knives you have, that's great, but it's a pretty big expense specifically for that one item. And then once you apply it to your knife scales and you've put a couple of coats on it, rub a coat on it, wipe off the excess, it will dry literally instantly. It dries and starts to set up. The next day you do it again. You can do 2-3 coats on your knife scales, and then you're done. You could probably go back once in a while and do another coating, if it depends on how much you use your knife. But otherwise, you're really only going to need this for that one time. and you're never going to need it again. So it is an option for most people that want to maintain knives, but it's not something I would really recommend unless you have a large collection of knives or you're really hard on your knives. Now lastly, I'm not going to go back into the stabilizing stuff. That's either going to be another updated video, or you can go back into some of the things that I've done in the past. But the last finish that I would be doing on a knife, other than the stabilizing part, is this new one. And this is boiled linseed oil and mineral spirits. This is about a 50-50 mix. And again, I just take this mason jar and I mixed both halves inside this. Now the boiled linseed oil has turned out to be quite impressive. What I did is, as I mentioned earlier, I used the oak and I put them in both of these. I put one in each one of these. And after 24 hours of this, I wiped them clean, set them to the side, and then after that I cut them up like I explained earlier. But the boiled linseed oil is very, very watery. Unlike the Watco Danish Oil, which, you know, it's a little thicker. Of course it's liquidy here, but it's a little thicker material, so it doesn't penetrate as well. And with the materials it's made out of, compared to something like the boiled linseed oil and the mineral spirits. So what I ended up doing is, in the comparison, this is the first piece of oak. Now again, it started out like this. It started out very similar to this. It's just a little bit shorter. So after having it set and soaked and all that stuff, I cut it down. And when I cut it down, it didn't really get a lot of good penetration in this edge here. And then when I ripped it in half, you'll see there's no penetration at all. You can see the difference between the top piece, which is the outside of the material, which has got the Watco on it, and then the inside. I sanded it down to 120 grit, but as you can see, it's just raw wood. So that's the reason why you have to do multiple coats on this, and this will always just protect the outside of your scales. Now don't get me wrong though, this isn't a bad option. You have to remember, the inside of the scales are actually going to be glued to your knife. They're going to be epoxied to the knife, so they're already going to have a certain amount of penetrating material inside them. The epoxy is going to penetrate into the wood and bond with the wood. Then there's going to be a center of this that's just not going to have anything. It's going to be raw wood, and the outside is going to be the Watco Danish Oil. And again, it's something that I might use on knives as a maintenance thing, but I'm really going to start veering towards these other options, because this was like a beginner knife type thing and something that needs a lot of maintenance and care. But it's only going to seal the outside of the knife, the scales, and that's it. Nothing on the inside. Whereas the piece that came out of the boiled linseed oil had a completely different result. I cut the edge down, and as you notice, the edge was still dark, just like the outside of the wood was. When I ripped it in half, as you'll see here, I marked it so this way we know, like a book match end. When I ripped it in half, I had complete penetration. There was no pressure at all. This just sat in this jar. But when I went to go pull this out after 24 hours, this piece of oak had sunk all the way to the bottom of the jar, which told me it absorbed all the moisture that was in it. But it had complete penetration. And to make sure that I wasn't seeing anything, I went and cut it down, and I sanded the edges down to 120 grit, and I sanded the inside down to 120 grit. And as you'll notice, it is complete 100% penetration without any pressure. I was very pleased with that. Now this treatment is going to be my go-to treatment for the most part when it comes to sealing the wood off, when it's not going to be stabilized. So it's not going to run through the stabilizing unit and the pressure unit. But that doesn't mean it's not going to get another step. So after I do this and it's been set, this will happen. First off, let me explain. I'm going to put the scales on your knife. If it was oak or cherry or elm, I will put it on the knife, finish the knife off. Then everything, the knife and everything is going to get put right in here, and it just soaks in there for a day. It'll sit in there for 24 hours. I'll wipe it clean, let it set, and then go from there. But that's how you're going to get treated if you want something like an oak or a mahogany. Because I had some mahogany here, and I'm going to throw these pieces of mahogany inside the boiled linseed oil, because I've had very little luck stabilizing the darker mahoganies. The lighter mahoganies, I've been able to, but the darker mahoganies, I haven't had as much luck. It's been inconsistent, and I haven't had full penetration. So I'm going to start trying the boiled linseed oil in those. So after I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and I'm going to use this Renaissance wax. And while we're here, I'm hoping it'll come over on the camera and you'll be able to see this. And I'll be able to get these two types of finishes to you, and I'm only going to do one of them. And what I'll do is I'll do the small square one here. I'll keep this one as you see it now, and we're going to use this one as our Renaissance wax finish. It comes off, it's like a paste in a way, but as you apply it, you want to work it into the surface, and then as you work it into the surface, you just wipe it clean. Now, I'm not sure if the first coat's going to give us anything. I don't even know if a second or third coat will. I'm doing this now for the first time, and I want to take you guys along with this. But I'm making sure that I put a good coat of wax on this. And this will fill any little voids because, again, the boiled linseed oil, it's not a stabilizing system, where the stabilizing stuff that I use will fill the voids. The stabilizing resin fills all the cracks and voids and splits, so when you bake it, it all becomes one piece. Whereas this, it leaves the little voids, like this had a little bit of like a wormhole there or something. That's why it was just a test piece. So that's you know, I applied it twice on here, but a coating would mean that I would let this set and dry for a moment, and I would apply a different coat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this set up for a second, and then I'm going to come back, I'm going to do a couple of more coats, and then we'll step outside in the sun and see if it made any difference. Okay guys, I put about 4 coats on this really quickly. I've only been doing it for about 10-15 minutes now. I'd put a good coat on, and I actually got the heat gun, and I heated it up slightly, and I'd wipe it down, and I'd give it a minute, and then I'd put another coat on. So in the initial part, you can see as you're looking at these, you're not going to really notice any difference. This one doesn't have any of the Renaissance finish on it, but this one does. Now, I can feel the difference already, simply because the Renaissance wax is going to start to fill in the little tiny nooks and crannies in the voids. Because again, the oils they're not fillers, they're just sealants. Unlike the stabilizing unit, whether I use my stabilizing resin or if I were to do acrylic, like other people do, they fill in your voids. So once the material's been cured, every little nook, cranny, void, all that stuff has this resin inside it, so it seals it up. Where these don't. They're topicals and penetrators. But I can tell already the differences by using just this, the boiled linseed oil, and then doing boiled linseed oil and having the Renaissance finish. So what I'm going to do is I thought I'd go and throw this on the buffing wheel, go over to the grinder and throw it on a buffing wheel and see if I can get a little bit of a sheen or a luster out of it first, and then we'll step outside and see if we can get a better look at it. So just for giggles, this is the non-waxed part. I'm just going to throw it on a buffing wheel and see how it comes out. Just having that boiled linseed oil and mineral spirit mix, and then throw it in a buffing wheel, because this is basically what I would be doing anyhow. You know, I can still tell the finish, the feel by touch. I can tell the difference between the waxed and the non-waxed. The look, not so much. So let's see, let's go outside. Okay, so there we have it. That's, honestly, look-wise, I don't know if you guys are going to notice any difference, but I'm holding them, and I can't really tell. It's the feel, really. I could feel, if I had a few more coats of wax on this one, I'd probably had filled in all the voids. Now that part there, that was a wormhole. That was a little punky. That's what these were scrap pieces. That's why. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they both polished up nice. Again, this had the wax and this didn't. And to me, I mean, maybe a slight darker variation on that one, but it's really more the feel. You'd have to have it on the feel. But also I know that this is more protected now because it had the wax. And again, I would do more coatings than just the couple of the 3 or 4 quick coatings I put on there. I would stretch coating this within 3 or 4 days. I would put a coat of wax on it and let it set up maybe in the morning, and then in the evening I would do another coat. And you know, by the time the knife got to the customer, your knife would have 5 or 6 coats of the Renaissance wax on it. So, and again, Renaissance wax has been around a long time. It's from, I think it's from Great Britain actually, from England, and they use it on all sorts of things, leather, wood, and I think they even use it on painted products too. So it's a good sealant. But I just thought I'd walk you through that a little bit to give you an idea, and you know, maybe not just me, maybe other knife makers are doing this, I'm not sure, but these are different finishes and different ideas. But the treatment that you would get for oak and your elms and your mahoganies and such would be this. It would be the boiled linseed oil, and I would do some Renaissance wax on it and give you a good coat, good seal. And again, at least you would know that you got full penetration, your wood's going to be good, you're not going to have to worry about it twisting and flexing and everything like that, and seal it up. And you know, I hope this was helpful to you guys. I hope this gave you a little idea, a little forethought, or a little bit of an understanding of what me or maybe some other knife makers go through when we're trying to find the best material and the best ways to give those products to you, the customer. So again, you guys take it easy. Thank you for watching the channel. Appreciate it. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps keep me at the bottom of the YouTube bucket. And also stop over to Instagram or my Facebook page. Check that kind of stuff out and see what's going on. And if you are subscribed, don't forget to hit that little bell for the notification that's on your screen. And stay tuned. Apparently I got 83 or 84 subscribers right now, and at the making of this video. And I'm thinking of maybe a 100 subscriber giveaway. So when I hit 100 subscribers, I got something special. I'm going to raffle off to one of you. So again, thanks for stopping over, guys. I do appreciate it. Thank you for all the support. Guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye.